Galaxy 666 by Peltora. Session 28.
Although the many mysterious planets of the multitudinous galaxies provided explorers and travelers with a vast host of different pieces of information, here was something which none of the four explorers had ever read of, or heard of, or seen anywhere in their travels before. Back in the old home galaxy, Galaxy 1, which was a great tourist attraction for those who could afford it, were the craters of Lunar, the canals of Mars, the jungles of Venus, the great red spot of Jupiter to be seen and marveled at. These were some of the classic wonders of the universe, but here was something that rivaled, if it did not surpass them all. This great pointer stuck out like a tower, like a spire, almost like a huge yellow bottle on the planet's surface. It was difficult, if not impossible, to explain it in artificial terms. It was almost equally difficult to try and explain it in terms of an artifact. "What the devil do you think it is?" asked Ishclaw. Bronit shook his head. "No idea," he responded. "Korzak, what do you think?" asked Oski. Korzak, too, shook his head.
"No idea,"
he answered.
"You know, if I were thinking in terms of fantasy, I would say that it was a gigantic Alco bottle placed on the floor of his living room by an untidy giant. This pink and white stuff we're walking over might also be linole."
"You've got a very fertile imagination,"
said Korzak. Ishclaw laughed.
"Could be," he said, "which would mean that we, in comparison with the untidy giant, are about the same size as wine flies, about the same size as ants, and possibly a little smaller. Little red mites crawling across his floor so small he doesn't notice us. We go our way, he goes his." "You're not putting that forward as a serious theory, are you?" asked Oski.
Bronit laughed. "Shouldn't think so," he said. "But how else can you describe it except as a gigantic bottle?"
"It could be a gigantic rocket,"
said Korzak, looking up at it.
"We have come across races on some of the denser planets who have used ships nearly as big as that."
"Yes, but it doesn't look like a ship."
"We've met a lot of life forms that don't look like man," said Bronit.
"True," said Ishclaw. "Very true."
"You two are official problem solvers," said Oski. "What do you make of it?"
"I would say it's definitely an artifact."
"If it is an artifact, how was it made and why?" said Ishclaw.
"Ah," said Korzak. "There is all the difference in the world between deciding that a thing is an artifact and deciding what its purpose is and how it was manufactured in terms of this planet. We know as little as 20th century aborigines suddenly finding themselves looking at a rocket ship or a helicopter or a television set."
He paused thoughtfully.
"They could tell at once that these things were not the work of nature. They could tell at once that these things were not dug up from under the ground. But they could not tell us how they were manufactured, neither could they possibly tell what their purpose was."
"A good point. You argue well,"
said Oski. "Which brings us no nearer to a solution, though," said Bronit.
"Do you need a solution?" asked Ishclaw.
"Life," said Korzak, "is often wasted looking for the right answers. What we ought to do is learn to ask the right questions. A certain amount of data is available to us. That data will answer certain sensible questions. Ask the wrong kinds of questions and we can't get any answers at all. We go around in ceaseless treadmills of our own devising."
"Well, that doesn't sound like a very progressive piece of thought," said Bronit, "coming from a couple of boy wonders like you."
"The point is," said Ishclaw, "that I'm facing facts."
"Well, what you seem to be saying," said Bronit, "is that there is certain forbidden knowledge that we must not attempt to achieve, must not attempt to attain, that there are certain answers that are not meant for us."
"Not meant by whom?"
challenged Ishclaw. "You're implying that there's a certain power at the back of the universe saying that we mustn't have certain knowledge," said Bronit.
"Not at all," returned Ishclaw. "I'm a great believer in knowledge. No new knowledge will ever hurt the truth. Truth has nothing to be afraid of, except lies. The truth will always overcome falsehood anyway, ultimately. It is prejudice that fears truth, not vice versa. Truth can never be harmed by truth."
Well, that sounds like a lot of metaphysical mumbo-jumbo to me, said Bronit.
Metaphysics is not mumbo-jumbo, said Korzak. It is one of the most vital sciences there is. What we need are a few more metaphysicians and a few less blind alley specialists grinding their brains to powder for the sake of nothing.
You must have specialization, said Bronit. It's a specialist universe.
Then we need some coordination specialists to hold the rest of us together, said Korzak.
This isn't solving our problem, said Oski. What is that thing?
Here ends Session 28.